What's up guys, Justin here with TheSketchUpEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp rendering tutorial for you. So today we're going to go in and we're going to use this model that I brought in from the 3D warehouse to see how good of a car render we can come up with. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. So I'm going to start off and say the very obvious thing, which is I did not model this car. I don't think I'm quite this skilled in SketchUp. This is something that I downloaded off of the 3D warehouse. It's something that you can go in and download as well. You just need to basically go in there and search for 2013 Specter, and that's by user Shimmy. And it's a really cool car model that you can get in here. It's modeled really well. It doesn't have anything done on the interiors, but I think for what we're trying to do, it doesn't really need to. You can see the exterior of the car is all modeled and everything like that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to basically see what kind of a render we can get out of this model. So we're going to mess around with some lighting settings, some background settings, stuff like that, and see what we can come up with. And that's one thing to note when you're working with renderings, is you can always make it better or more the way that you want it to be. So you just kind of have to come in here and come up with the best image that you think that you can. And if it's not good enough, or if you want it to look better, you can change some things and try again. You can go on places like the Twilight Render forum to ask for help, and it's just kind of a constant improvement type process. So anyway, the other thing that I've got in this model is I've got a couple different studios in here. So basically these are just studios that you use a lot in the same way that if you were doing like product photography, if you've ever seen one of those setups, they've got kind of a light in the, or they've got kind of a white background. So that you don't get any weird shadows or any weird materials in the background, and they also have kind of a light shining off of this. We're going to do kind of the same thing. So you can download these by going to the Twilight Render forum, and I'll link to this topic in the notes below, but this is by user Olashay from the Twilight Render forum, so you can go in there and you can just download these into your model. But this is really useful because you don't have to come in here and model all this stuff, because if you turn hidden geometry on and everything, the whole point of this is that it's really smooth, but it could be a little difficult to model. So just being able to like download it and bring it in is going to be really helpful for us. And that's kind of the other thing, is having like sharp corners in the background of your renders doesn't necessarily make it look super good. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started in here. And I've talked a little bit in the past. Basically, the way that you get a great rendering is it's basically two things, maybe three things. So there's materials, there's lighting, and there's environment. So if you can get those three things right in here in your model, then your rendering should look pretty good. So to start off, we're going to do what we usually do when we work on renderings. We're going to come in here and we're going to do a test render just as is to kind of see what this looks like. So to do that, remember we use Twilight Render for these tutorials. You can use another rendering software as well. They're going to be similar. You will have to find some different things and figure out how it works in your particular rendering software. But if you want to use Twilight, we're using the hobby version, which is free. So anyway, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the Twilight Render toolbar and click this little green button, which is the render button. And what that's going to do is that's going to pop up your rendering window, just like this, where we're going to work on our rendering. And if you remember, there's a whole bunch of different presets in here for different renderings that we can do, so we don't have to mess around with settings too much. So we're going to start off and we're just going to select this Easy 01, the preliminary render. Then we're just going to hit the play button. And we're just going to see what this spits out. So, and this may take, this will vary in the amount of time that it takes based on the power of your computer and everything else. So anyway, it's going to come through here and it's going to create kind of a quick render of this object. So you can see how it is a little more realistic in this rendering than it is just looking at it in your SketchUp model. But honestly, the SketchUp model probably looks a little bit better at this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to start adjusting our different settings. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to start adjusting all of our material settings. And so what we've talked about before is you're basically going to use this materials, this template material menu in order to come in here and start adjusting materials. And so what you're going to do is you're going to use this little eyedropper to select different materials in here. And so in this case, you can see how when I click on that, that brings up this, it selects basically the color. So this is the body color that he used in order to model this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use our templates. So you're going to come up to template, and you're going to go down to car paint, and you're just going to select white reflection. So you can see what this is going to do is that's going to come in here and that's going to make this material as this kind of updates over here. This is your preview pane, so you can see how this material is going to look. But you can see how that comes in here and that adjusts your material so that it reflects a little bit more and stuff like that. And you can come in here and you can set like the bump map to SketchUp. In this case it probably won't matter too much because this is a really smooth color. But so we can start off with this, and so now what we do is, since we've set this to kind of this white reflection, if we go in here now and we run another quick render, what's going to happen, and it may not happen on the preliminary very well, but what's going to happen is you should start seeing some reflection off of that material a little bit because we made it more of a shiny car paint type material. So you can see how now as this kind of comes in here and starts to render, you're getting a lot more reflection off of this car paint material. And don't worry about the fact that it doesn't look super good right now. We're gonna do some other things to change it as well, but this is just kind of a preliminary. We're gonna take a look at this material and just kind of adjust it. And so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in here and we're gonna do this for a bunch of other materials as well. So like for example, I'm gonna come in here and this like carbon fiber on the front. That one's going to be a little special in that there's no carbon fiber preset in Twilight Render, so probably what we're going to do is we're going to select like a shiny plastic type material for that one. So, and we probably want to leave the bump as color on this one because we don't want it to come in here and put bumps along the carbon fiber lines at all. That's not really what we want it to do, just because we don't want this to be rough, and what that would do is it would make it kind of bumpy along these lines. So we'll just leave this as is for right now. So we'll go ahead and set that to that. We'll come in here and we'll select our kind of light material in or our headlight cover, and we'll set that to kind of a we'll start with a common glass for right now. And you can come in here under advanced and uncheck cast shadow because we don't want that to cast shadow. So what we may end up doing is we'll probably end up coming in here and adjusting the material of the lights themselves. I don't know that they necessarily are labeled. They're not. So if you click this drop down, basically what you're going to see is you're going to see a list of all the different materials in your model. So I was hoping I could come in here and find one that the creator of this model had set as headlight materials, but I don't see that on this list, so we're going to go ahead and not worry about that for right now. We may come back and change that later. So these kind of intakes right here I'm probably going to set as more of a maybe like a satin plastic. You know what, I'm going to set those actually as a flat plastic. So if you think about a car, right, these may be a little bit flat in that they're more of just like a dark plastic material in here. They're not necessarily shiny on a lot of intakes and stuff like that. So you just kind of have to think about the way that materials act in real life, and then just kind of find something that makes sense based on that. So in this case, I'm going to come in here and probably set these to like an aluminum type material. So same thing with this mesh kind of here on the front. That's probably going to be kind of a flat plastic again. So plastic, flat. And you can see all I'm doing is I'm just going in here and I'm just selecting materials that I think are going to make sense. And then what I'm going to do from there, when I do that, is I'm going to test my render, see how those materials work, and then I'll adjust if they don't necessarily make sense. So, you know, I'm basically just setting things to like materials that I think are going to be or that are going to match the way this looks in real life. So like for example, I set this as an aluminum, I set this as kind of a shiny plastic. I'll probably set this second piece as a shiny plastic as well. So, and just kind of work your way through your model and just kind of select materials. So I'll set this one to a shiny aluminum. And you should try to get as many of these as you can set in your model, and it does require some kind of attention to detail. And now that I say that, I'm sure I'll come in here and I'll miss something. But you know, you just kind of want to try to set everything so that it has a Twilight Render material associated with it. So I'm going to come in here and adjust this piece to probably an aluminum as well, at least for right now. We may end up changing that. In fact, I may set that one, instead of an aluminum, I'm going to set that one to, no, we'll leave it as aluminum for right now. So just go through here, and for right now, we'll just start off, just go through here and set all of these materials in here as something that you think that it should be. So most of the things that will reflect, I'm setting as kind of a metal. You know, and some things, you know, you just kind of have to think about the way light would reflect off of them. Some of them I set as more of like a glossy, like plastic. So I'm probably going to set the inside of this rim to that one. I'll probably use the shiny plastic preset actually on that one. And what we can do later is we can come in here and we can adjust the shininess of these different objects. For the tire, I'm just going to select kind of a flat material. So now we're going to come in here and we're going to set the glass. And the glass is interesting because I don't necessarily want it to be super translucent, especially since we don't have anything inside our car. And so what I'm going to try actually is I'm going to select this material just like this, and I'm going to set it as like a glossy plastic, but then I'm going to give it some transparency and see how that works. Because I want it to reflect, but I don't necessarily want it to show through and show that we don't necessarily have the interior of this object in our model. So this glass material, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select plastic, I'm going to select shiny, and then we're going to come in here and we're going to adjust the alpha. So the alpha affects how transparent this material is. So like if I come in here and I set this alpha to 5%, then you can see how in my model it suddenly got really transparent. But if I come in here and I set it to like 85%, then you can see it's got a little bit of transparency showing stuff through, but not very much. So it's like a very heavily tinted window. So we're going to start with this and kind of see how that looks. So, and I'm actually going to do the same thing with this rim. Actually, the rim we'll bring in here as a car paint. So same kind of thing. We're just going to bring that in as kind of the same paint here. If that doesn't work, what I may do is I may come back in and bring that in as more of a, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring that in as more of a plastic material. So I'm going to go up to templates, plastic, and we'll probably pick like a shiny plastic for now. See how that looks. I may change it to more of a satin plastic later, but you can see how this has more of a metal feel instead of the car paint option that we have. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run a preliminary render and see how this changed the way everything looks. So we'll just use the preliminary setting, we'll hit that play button, and we'll see what it spits out. It's probably going to take a little bit longer because now you've got a lot more materials that have a lot more reflection. So it's going to take a little while longer for it to go ahead and bake all the colors on this thing. So there you go. So now you can see how everything in this model definitely has some more reflection to it. So I may want to try to get a little bit more out of this base right here, but for now I think we're good. The one thing we're probably going to have to do is we're probably going to have to come in here and adjust these rims because those are just in there as the default material right now. So like if I go into this rim and I select the material on it, it's SketchUp's default material, which I don't want because I don't want to assign a template to that because that's going to make everything that's the default material, including my background, that same kind of thing. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to select this face, and you're probably going to have to double click a few times to actually get in here because it's probably nested in some groups and stuff like that. But we're just going to come in here and we're going to go to our materials section. We'll just select all these faces. We'll just go to our materials section in here and we'll just pick colors and we'll just go with a white color. So like this color M00, that is different than the default material. So it looks the same, but now I won't be changing everything that shows up in my model to this kind of material. And I'm going to go ahead and make this one kind of a glossy or shiny plastic for right now. We'll see how that looks. So, and again, I'm not doing anything special. I'm not coming in here and adjusting any of the shininesses or anything like that. I'm just applying the default template materials. Because I think for what we're trying to do right here, that's probably going to be good enough, and that's going to spit out a pretty good result. So anyway, I'm going to get back out of that. And probably the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and come in here, and I'm going to assign a material to these lights. So what I had to do is I had to click in here enough that I could hide that face so that I could get to these things. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm just going to select these, and I'm going to set these as, for right now we'll set them as a glass, like a common glass. And we'll just turn the alpha, we'll leave the alpha alone for right now. We'll see what it spits out. So just come in here and set both of these as common glass in your material. So we'll come in here, we'll set these as common glass, which I may have done already. Oh, there we go. Yep, so those come in as common glass. Once that comes in, you can close out of this. And that's interesting. Somehow this fiber Specter 3, I thought I'd selected it before, but it didn't come in as a plastic. So we're just going to go back to templates, and we'll just call this a shiny plastic material. Just like this. So then we can close out of this. We can unhide our glass that was in here, so that'll show back up. And then we'll click back out of this object. So just click until you're out of your group. There we go. So we're going to run one more preliminary render real quick. And, you know, I'm constantly checking the way this looks just to make sure that I'm adjusting everything while I'm thinking about it, because if I come back in later and I try to run this render and something doesn't work, then I'll have wasted a whole lot of time letting the image kind of bake in the background for nothing. So don't be afraid to run a bunch of these preliminary renders unless you have like a really, really slow computer, just to make sure everything is kind of working the way that it should. And if you look in here, you basically want to look at all these objects and just make sure that everything seems to be reflecting the way that it should. If you look at something that isn't reflecting very well, you may just want to click on it and make sure you've applied a material to it. See, like this grill is a great example. It wasn't reflecting anything because I forgot to apply a material to it. So we'll set that. I'm using the shiny plastic in here a lot. I think that kind of fits with what we're working on. Some materials do come in here as more of a flat plastic, so just be kind of careful with that. Anyway, so I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to apply an environment to this, or a different lighting file to this. So, you know, this is something that I've linked to before, but right now what this is doing is it's using SketchUp Sky to light the model. And you can't tell super well right now just because the background is set to white, but that's where your lighting is coming from. And for an object like this, that's not necessarily the best thing in the world. What we want now is we want to bring in our own lighting environment. And so you can download this environment at kirkathea.net. I've talked about this a little bit before. I'll link to it in the notes below. But in the resources section, they have a great free studio lighting sky that you can bring in here. So basically what you do is you download that file, and then there's this environment editor in SketchUp, and so what it'll do is it'll show you this preview, or the environment editor is in Twilight Render, but it'll show you this preview of the way this will look, the way the lighting looks. So you can see how that's kind of bringing in lighting based on that sky. Well, what we want to do is we want to download from kirkathea.net. You can go to the downloads resources section, or you can just follow the link in the note below. But what we want is we want to come in here and we want to download this Studio Light by Rayman. So come in here, download this. That's going to give you a zip file, which you can then unzip in a location where you can find it. Like I keep all my rendering stuff in a single folder so that I can find it pretty easily. But so what you're going to do is you're going to unzip that file, and then what you're going to do is you're going to come in here and under background and sky type, you're going to select hemispherical sky. So just like this, and then you're going to go navigate to the location of that file. So you're going to click this little drop down, and your download file is going to look like this. It's going to be the Studio Light 1 by Rayman. So open that up, it'll have a folder in it that says Studio Light, and then you're just going to select, we'll start off with Box Light for right now. And so basically this is just a lighting file. It's basically a light background that goes all the way around your model, and in this case you can see how it's got kind of a single box on the top that's generating the light. You can see that by the reflection off of this stainless sphere right here. So anyway, we're going to start off with that, and so then we're going to run another quick render and see how that looks. So you're just going to come in here now that you've got your new environment selected, and we'll just run another preliminary render and see how that looks. So it should change the way that your reflections look in your model. There we go. So just by taking a look at this, you can see how it's kind of got the reflection of that box right here. So it gives you something that reflects off of your model in here. So now what we're going to do is, it looks like there's a couple more areas I need to clean up on my spoiler, but then we're going to go ahead and we're going to run probably a little higher level preview render just to get kind of a good idea what this is going to look like before we do our final render. So I'm going to come in here and clean these materials up real quick. So you can see how these little objects in here are also in there as SketchUp's default material, and we want to go ahead and we want to adjust those. So the nice thing is these are all in here as components, so you can see how when I double click and I edit one of them, it edits all of them. So we'll go ahead and just fill this in with this color M00 instead of the default material, and if you remember, we already applied a material template to that earlier. There we go. So there may be some materials on the back of this car that we didn't apply, but we're not really working with those right now anyway. So as long as all the materials that you can actually see have been applied, you can go ahead and come in here and go ahead and run your test render. Alright, so now we've got kind of everything in here the way that we want it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come in here and we're going to run kind of a higher quality test render. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and probably run this on like a medium. So you go ahead and hit play and just kind of see how this looks. And what that's going to do is that's going to give you a little better idea of the way your materials are going to look and the way your car is going to look. So the preliminary is great for checking your light and stuff like that, but it's not necessarily as good for testing what your render is going to look like. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run this render, and we'll give it just a second to come in here and spit this out, and then we'll talk about what it makes for us. Alright, perfect. So I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out, actually. I could probably just stop right here if I really wanted to. I think this is a really good looking render, and I think everything's kind of reflecting the way that it should, and I think this looks fairly realistic. And that's one thing that you need to kind of take into the whole process when you're working with the rendering, is you have to be okay with good enough, unless you're going for like some kind of competition or something like that. If you get a realistic looking image out of your model, then at least for me, I'm usually pretty happy with that. So you can always come in here and tweak some other stuff and that kind of thing. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to run this. Now that I'm kind of happy with the way this looks, the way my angle, all that different stuff, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to run this on an interior progressive render, which is basically, this will just run forever, and it'll just go through and it'll basically just update your model until you tell it to stop. But for this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run that for probably 20-25 minutes, and we'll see what it spits out. But so make sure you set your object size, the right size that you want. So if you want an image that's like big enough to be a wallpaper or something, then you're going to set that a little higher than if you're just trying to do a little preview render like this. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and run that. It doesn't look like there's anything I need to change before I do that, so you're just going to click this drop down. You're going to select this Easy 09 Interior Progressive and just let it run for a while. So now that we've got our image in here, and I actually let mine sit here and render for a long time. I kind of got busy doing some other stuff, but it ended up rendering in here for about 51 minutes. But now we're going to go in, we're just going to mess with our post-processing settings a little bit. A lot of these are kind of trial and error, but like for example, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to bring the exposure down a little bit because this is kind of white and kind of washed out feeling. So I'm going to bring the exposure and the gamma down a little bit. Just to see kind of what that does to my image. So you can see, I feel like as I bring the gamma down, you don't want to go too far because it looks kind of red, but you want to bring it down a little bit just because it brings your brightness level down and makes it look a little bit more realistic. And then you can come in here as well and maybe do some like a vignette setting, which I think the vignette setting is going to come in here and it's going to adjust the way the perimeter of this image looks. So you can use that to kind of match your background a little bit with your car in here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set that to kind of a black color around the perimeter there. And it's going to come in and adjust that in just a second. There we go. So maybe if you come in here and you set your vignette settings to like a black color, so you can see how basically what this is doing is it's taking the corners of your image and it's making them dark. So you can kind of adjust how strongly that falls off in your image. You can adjust the hotspot, so like the size of the image, the alpha, which is going to affect kind of how much you can see through that, stuff like that. So you can just kind of come in here and play with this and just find something that you think works. So anyway, it's just kind of a trial and error type process in here. So just kind of mess around with this setting and see what you can come up with. One other and then once you're done, once you've got your image kind of the way that you want it, you can go up here and you can save a copy of your image just by clicking this save button. So anyway, if you click this save a copy, then you can go save that file as a JPEG image that you can pretty much work with anywhere. So to stop your render, you can click this stop button. Do make sure that when you're done, don't click stop until you're done because you can't start it back up again. You can pause it and start it back up again, but when you hit stop, you're done. So unless you want to redo this, if there's something you don't like, don't click that stop button. But anyway, so that's where I'm going to wrap up this video. I'll leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought. Did I get in depth enough for you? Did I give you kind of the information at least to get started on this? I just love having that SketchUp conversation with you guys. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new SketchUp content every week. If you like what I'm doing in this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Every little bit helps, even if it's only $1 a month. That'll help me just keep bringing you great SketchUp content. But in any case, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.